from government to rescue British American insurance policyholders. Parliament puts the spotlight on human trafficking. And in sports, the T20 World Cup losses.
Credible, balanced, committed. This is the CBC Evening News.
And a very good evening to you. I'm Lisa Lord with the CBC Evening News and our top story. Prime Minister Frundle Stewart says Barbados' authorities must weed out the perpetrators of human trafficking and make them pay for dehumanizing our young women. He made the comments in the lower house as it debated the Trafficking in Persons Prevention Bill 2016, which included stiff penalties for such crimes, including withholding people's passports.
We have to build a Barbados that respects women, that respects children, that respects families, a Barbados of which we can all feel proud. We do not accept any of the postulates of state-sponsored or individual slavery. And that has to be made very clear right across this country and right across this region. I deeply sympathize with all those who have been quiet, muted victims of this kind of abuse.
Prime Minister Stewart says education and enforcement of the penalties of human trafficking are vital to ensuring that the perpetrators don't get away with their deeds. He says the authorities must ensure that these persons are brought before the courts to show society's abhorrence with such crimes, since some people are hell-bent on making money from trafficking people.
All across the world, we out of the United Kingdom, out of the United States, all over the world, the Western world, that's the part of the world that we are most concerned with. That instinct to make the almighty dollar at any cost, at anybody's expense, is still very much a strong motivating factor. As I said, for me, slavery of any kind is a crime unredeemed and unredeemable by even one extenuating circumstances. It is a non-starter for me. And I think that this House has done itself proud today by joining hands on this issue.
And Barbados is moving to improve its ranking in the 2015 Trafficking in Persons report by the U.S. State Department. Attorney General and Minister of Home Affairs Adriel Brathwaite says a lot of work has been going on, and he was speaking during parliamentary debate on the Trafficking in Persons Prevention Bill. In last year's report, Barbados was listed in Tier 2. Countries in that category are considered to be not fully compliant with the minimum standards, but making significant efforts to do so. Mr. Brathwaite says there have been some success stories as it relates to rescuing women who've been forced into prostitution.
As a result of our work, as a result of the work of the Royal Barbados Police Force over the last couple of years, not only have they gone into many of these establishments in Barbados and tried to assist any of these women in particular who allegedly are being exploited. But what I am told by the Royal Barbados Police Force is that when they interview the females, that in fact that they produce their passports to say that they're not prevented from going out.
Meantime, MP for St. James Central Kerry Simmons wants authorities to be more forceful in policing gentlemen clubs and escort services.
In Barbados today, there is, in my judgment, a need for us to become a lot more, as I say, strident in the level of penalty which is associated with some of the activities that we're trying to curb, because it really, it sounds good and it goes some distance to put these things down in black and white. But you're going to have to do the policing, and the policing has to be seriously done and enforced.
Well, government is providing an $8 million cash injection to help the British American insurance company Barbados Limited. Finance Minister Chris Sinclair made that disclosure in Parliament this morning. He was outlining a plan to rescue investors and policyholders in that insurance company. This as he led off debate on the second reading of the British American Insurance Company Barbados Limited Preservation of Investments Bill 2016. Mr. Sinclair says the pension fund of BICO is in deficit to the tune of just over $8 million. He said that this would prevent scores of workers from receiving their retirement funds.
It is really one of these tough situations where you have employees working all the time, making their contribution to a pension fund, only to find out that the assets are not there to support their pensions when they're retired, and they're actually facing the specter of not getting a pension at all. I mean, that I can think of very few things that could be more startling and disconcerting to any individual.
Mr. Sinclair says the Ministry of Finance will be making a direct cash payment into the pension fund as part of the solution. He also says the judicial manager KPMG has submitted its final report to the High Court for the transfer of life and annuity policies to Sagicor Life Inc. The High Court had given KPMG until the 15th of February this year to submit that report.
It is not fair to them, and the government recognized this, and the government has indicated that it will come in and that it will pay the cash amount of $8 million to make that pension fund whole, so that when those people retire, they can get their just deserts, what they have worked so hard for and contributed toward. So that is the second commitment in terms of the pension fund, and it affects 72 persons.
Meantime, opposition leader Mia Mottley has voiced concern about the impact of government's multi-million-dollar intervention in BICO and CLICO on the country's debt situation. She believes that it could have a ripple effect on the economy.
If we are taking on $400 million in debt here, it means that there is no or less flexibility to take it on over here to assist the hospital, to assist the purchase in garbage trucks, or to assist other things that are required in the orderly, normal business of government. And this is a reality that all Barbadians need to accept.
Well, Ms. Mottley says while the opposition supports government's intervention in the BICO saga to protect the assets of Barbadians, it has stopped short in one respect.
And that is to be able to recover as much as it can to minimize the liability, as well as to send the message that this must not happen again when people act in trust for people's money.
Amendments are coming to the Road Traffic Act with tougher provisions for local license plate manufacturers. Transport Minister Michael Lashley says it will address concerns about criminals using cars with fictitious license plates to commit crime. He made the announcement during a Democratic Labour Party St. Michael West branch meeting.
Now, in order for a license plate to be issued, you have to produce a valid ID, a valid license, proof of ownership, proof of transfer, a whole set of conditions. A whole set of conditions that we are going to put in place. We have greeted, myself and the Attorney General, we have greeted, and we are looking at another provision, because we believe that the onus should also be placed on the person who owns the vehicle. And the onus will be furnish that information to the license authority. We want reports. We want to know who went there, who get the license plate. We want to know, we want to see the valid ID, we want to see the valid driver's license, all that we want to see, and we want to check.
Meanwhile, the Transport Minister is also suggesting tougher policing of ZRs. He says problems associated with the ZR culture need to be treated as issues of law and order. Mr. Lashley insists his ministry creates the requisite legislation for such enforcement.
There are provisions within the Road Traffic Act, there are provisions within the Transport Authority Act, and all you need is enforcement. That's all you need, enforcement. The provisions need to be policed, and then I've asked the Chief License Officer at my ministry to get his personnel the legislative officers, get them on the road and get them out there in an aggressive way.
Well, some residents in St. John, St. Joseph and St. Andrew will be without water tomorrow. The outage is part of the Barbados Water Authority shutdown for its mains laying program in Package B. It will last for 12 hours from 9 in the morning until 9 at night. Customers in Consett Bay, St. Mark's, Fortescue, Bath, St. Margaret's, Glen Burnie and Foster Hall in St. John could experience low pressure or water outages. Other affected areas will be Tent Bay, Bathsheba, Joes River, St. Elizabeth, Cattle Wash and East Coast Road, all in St. Joseph. The affected St. Andrew areas include Belle Plaine, Lakes, Isolation Road, Franklin Douglas Road, Babylon, Walkers, Shorey Village, Chalky Mount, Cambridge, Bruceville, St. Simons, Bawdens, Cane Garden and Baxter's. The BWA recommends that customers store adequate amounts of water for the duration of that shutdown. Well, stay with us. We'll have more news in just a moment.
Everybody flex. I feel invincible, unbreakable, indestructible. Everybody say.
Say hello to Shanta. Shanta is an entertainer, but she also loves to be entertained, which is why she has Flow TV brought to her through Flow's 100% fiber to the home network. It's great for busy Shanta because she can control the time she watches her favorite shows, play back from the start in case she missed it, or even record with cloud video recording. And with her Flow services bundle, enjoys much more for much less. Visit any Flow retail outlet, call 1-800-804-2994 or visit discoverflow.co to find out more. One-of-a-kind connection. This is how we flow.
A lot of people think that fast boys are cool, and the girls show like the guys who right them. But like so many things about life, you gotta be careful. Having sex without a condom is like riding a bike without a helmet. It's just plain dumb. It's okay to have fun as long as you're smart about it. My name is Daniel the Lion Fortress, and I'm different, and I'm making a difference.
Live up. Love, protect, respect.
Well, there were several people at St. Peter's Bay last night for the annual Broadway to Barbados Charitable Trust fundraising event for the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. That event featured some of the finest cuisine and drinks. There was also an all-star cast headed by Neil Burke, whose primary goal is to push ahead with improvements to the Accident and Emergency Department. Head of the Medical Intensive Care Unit of the QEH, Dr. Anne-Marie Hassel, says a central monitoring system and a new ultrasound machine are on the cards for that department this year.
Accident and emergency. So it doesn't matter where in the hospital you end up or if you're going back home, you still have to come to accident and emergency. And as you can imagine, and anyone who's been through there recently, you know how overcrowded it is. You know how hard it is to get things done. And so this year, all of our contributions, or most of them, are going to be going towards the accident and emergency. And we have two big projects in mind. One is to expand the critical care part of that accident and emergency. So we have more beds carrying more monitors in one particular area, so less staffing needed, but better monitoring going on. And secondly, to buy a lot of the needed equipment that I have that now they want.
The ruling Democratic Labour Party has chronicled the history of Barbados as the island prepares to celebrate its Golden Jubilee. The information has been compiled and put into a commemorative calendar. Copies of it were presented to the chairman of the CBC, Peter Earle, acting general manager Rod London, and director of news and current affairs, Michelle Arthur. Assistant General Secretary Senator Andrew Worrell says the calendar traces the DLP's contribution to the island over the last 50 years. It is the first of the party's contribution towards the 50th independence anniversary celebrations.
It chronicles the progress of Barbados over the 50 years and highlights the leaders of the Democratic Labour Party who would have contributed to the country's development and the projects and the initiatives which they have developed over the 50 years. We are also inviting persons because we would want that everyone is involved in the celebration of the 50th anniversary of independence. So in this calendar, we would want to include activities for the 50th anniversary. So we're inviting churches, community groups, schools, businesses, anyone who is having an event from now up until November 30th, anything which relates to the 50th anniversary of independence and you would like it promoted, you can send the information to us at the Democratic Labour Party.
And Chairman Earl notes that the calendar also holds a wealth of information about the CBC as well.
If you look in the calendar, you'll see that it also records the CBC, an image of CBC during the last 50 years. The calendar also records about 50 important events and accomplishments by the Democratic Labour Party during the last 50 years, and that is important. And also chronicles and records the 4 prime ministers from independence, from Barrow right down to the present Prime Minister Stewart. So it's an extremely important document. It gives you an idea of the events that are going to be occurring during the year, so that one can follow and be prepared for the important events.
Well, they may be living in Barbados, but Guyanese nationals weren't left out of Masharami celebrations marking their Republic Day. The Guyanese Association of Barbados Incorporated, or the GABI, organized a family fun day at the Flash Zone Bar in Black Rock over the weekend. It was a time to relax, socialize, and promote Guyana's culture. Masharami, sometimes referred to as MASH, is usually observed on February 23rd to commemorate the birth of the Republic. Acting President of the association, Gavin Bovell, says other activities are planned in the lead up to the country's 50th year of political independence on May the 26th.
Some of those are very embryonic stages. So right now we've had a launch of the independence celebrations last month. This is our first event. There's another event that's on the table, which I really can't divulge just too much because a lot of the plans are a little sensitive at the point in time. But we plan to do a very big plan to celebrate its 50 years, just as Barbados is celebrating their 50 years as well. We want to celebrate our 50 years, with just as much zeal and to encourage the Barbadian community to come out and support us just as we've supported the Barbadian community. And it's something that we're really looking forward to.
Mr. Bovell says Barbados and Guyana have a close relationship, and he also says Guyanese living here have contributed in many ways to their host country. Well, a traveling team exploring ocean pollution has made a stop right here in Barbados. The expedition project, made up of 14 women from 10 different countries, wants to shed new light on the link between women's health and plastic in the world's oceans. This sailing expedition to the Caribbean Sea will be the first time these waters have been sampled for plastics and toxic pollutants. The data will be provided to organizations, including the United Nations, working in the region to reduce plastics and toxic pollution.
Its focus is on plastics and toxics and making the unseen seen. So we're talking about the really small pieces. The fact that plastic isn't this really visual issue that we once thought it was, that we could go out and kind of get all of these really overwhelming images. But it's actually the bigger problem are the bits that are almost invisible, and obviously these toxics too.
Expedition founder there, Emily Penn, says that the voyage departed February 20th with scheduled stops in Trinidad, Barbados, St. Lucia, Dominica and Antigua. Since being here, the group has paid courtesy calls to Codrington School, the Marriott Hotel and the Future Centre Trust. Well, still to come, a look at some of the stories making headlines across our region.
You're looking good.